Hello, everybody. It's Lesley here, and I've been asked questions about how to paint a group of horses and people rather than an individual, which tends to be my style. I wanted to show you a day at the racetrack that I had a few years ago. It's so filled with excitement, and I wanted to share with you how I pull forth a personal intention, which is, I think, what dictates all great art. So it's full of nervous horses and people, full of smiling people, hopes, dreams, victory and defeat. There's so much there. So let's explore why I chose what I did. What to paint, how to pick from the plethora of ideas and imagery I had gathered. Is it excitement, power, or glamour that interests me? Or is it colour and texture? All these are very valid, but they don't feel personal enough, at least for me these days. Our party was situated by the turn of the final stretch. I'm 66 years old, and I'm well into my final stretch, or at least I'm turning into it now. It's having the courage to stay the race and live life to the fullest. So I've decided to use my key number 2, emotion and energy, and I can yield to this idea. Now, I paint, as you can see now, I paint watercolors like I paint oils. I'm an oil painter, really, using watercolor. That's what I am. For my demo, I've sealed a 16 by 20 wooden panel, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. I'm going to paint galloping horses as they enter the final stretch, because this is what I feel like I'm turning into as well. And my intention is rather spiritual, really. So I'm drawn to using my favorite colors, which are indigos and blues with tinges of greens and purples, not rather than what's actually there. And we'll see how it goes. Now, my mentor, Dick Turner of Houston, said that when we're painting realism, there are really only two things you need to know how to paint. And he, in his Texan accent, he'd say, where light hits and where light don't hit. And any aspect of reality that's present in my paintings follows this advice. And you can learn all about those 12 lights that I've identified for free on my website or using a video. So here you see I begin very rapidly with no thought than to paint a smoky shape which will comprise of all the horses that are in this piece. I have to paint quickly because it's watercolor and it will dry almost immediately. For my students, this is like one form shadow, but it's not a single form, it's multiple forms painted together. And we've done light number 2, and I apologize that I wasn't very good at videoing. I did this by myself. Also, light number 2 is the cast shadow, which you'll see later on. Now, this video actually took 25 minutes, but obviously I've sped it up because I certainly don't want to bore you to death. But I also wanted you to know that I then proceed to light number 3, which is the cracks, crevices, and creases. Now, these serve as landmarks, to sort of keep you on the way. Then I'll get a rag, which I've done here. Actually, this is a cut-up t-shirt. And, well, the beautiful thing about watercolors like wet oils is you can wipe out the light. And what I'm doing now is I'm wiping out platforms for light as I see them in a very rapid way because, I really want you to get the feeling that these horses and these people are driving past you. I mean, this happens in 2 or 3 seconds. And so if I want to give you the feeling of energy and emotion, I don't need to be painting every hair and every stirrup and every shine. That is replicating a photograph. It's not necessarily replicating life. I know how it felt, I know how it sounded, I know how it smelled, and I want to, let you get a sense of that. Now I've got an even smaller bristle, and I'm doing cracks, crevices, and creases. Again, these serve as, like landmarks to help me know where I am. Very often, that's all you need to get some sense of realism. But anyway, you can see that it's much darker. These cracks, crevices, and creases, light number 3, they tend to happen where planes overlap, and the viewer doesn't very often need so much information. If you give them the cracks, crevices, and creases, a little bit of a platform for light, they can pretty much tell what you're painting. Then it's up to you to put yourself into it and have a great time with the painting process. Now, I'm not going to intending to make the masterpiece of the modern world here. I'm just trying to impart what is valuable to me these days about the painting process. My process is always in support of something that I feel, um, some powerful emotion or gentle emotion. Always want to paint from a personal point of view, and horses, for me, are the vehicle for my creative expression. That's what they are. They transmit my ideas much better than a representative painting would. As I proceed through the painting, if I've got something that begins to look a little bit like what I intended or begins to excite me, I then switch to the key number 3, which is yielding, where I'm not really thinking. I'm responding to the design that appears to be occurring. I start to wipe out shapes because I think primarily I'm a shape painter. And I begin to respond to what the shapes are telling me. Are they supportive of my intention, or are they, becoming too dominant? Would it help me if I did a powerful color here or there? When always in support of my intention, and my idea is no, it wouldn't, not at all. You will see that now I'm beginning to add gouache, or a translucent water media. This is a watercolor. And so I really like neutral grays for this piece for some reason. And I love to carve out shapes. I mean, it's like Michelangelo's, angel that he said was already inside the marble and he just had to chip away the bits. That's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm using opaque, thicker paint of these similar values, hues, and just subtly pushing them in and around these shapes to create the shapes. There are many ways to identify shapes. You don't have to do a line around them. You can just add different textures or different thicknesses or marks. And you'll see me do all of these things, whether I'm using oils or watercolors. And you'll notice that very often I will do maybe way more legs than I need and just carve out the ones that I want. And that's what I'm doing here. So you'll notice that I've wiped out my platforms for light. I'm softening off some areas here too, which also gives the feeling of speed. Because if those legs are moving at a great rate. If you've got every sinew painted, it doesn't even look like it's moving. So very often I'll rapidly put in the gouache and I'll dust it off with my finger or a rag or a soft brush just to soften the edges, again to give you the feeling of speed. I'll spray paint on. I really sort of respond to the paint and yield to the process um, as we go along more and more and more. Well, now I've got my Caran d'Ache crayons. Again, I'm using them of a similar color hue variety, and I'm just accentuating some of the shapes that I see on the photograph, but also I'll tend to, do a shape which, I just feel like doing, one that the paint has created haphazardly or accidentally. This enables me to define any areas that I want to, and here you've got to be rather sensitive because, if some of these animals, like they are in the back, you don't want to delineate every single thing. You want to kind of have a sense that, something you're focusing on. You're a predatory animal as a human being, and you tend to focus on one thing, and everything else becomes a blur. And so it's up to you as a painter to choose where people are looking primarily, and then create a journey for the eye for them by doing not details but more marks, to help them to have somewhere to go in the painting. And really, you're directing their eye. You're bringing it into the painting. You're activated the painting surface so that they can dance in and out and around. And they'll find it interesting. And I'll tell you what, if you paint everything for them, they might come up and go, oh, look, every hair, how gorgeous. But really, the person that is expressive and loves to participate in the process and sees and feels the painting, they will love it if you don't explain everything for them, because that makes them a participant. You'll notice that I've got my paintbrush out here. I'm just accentuating a few things that may have been lost in my dusting off process, or things that might enhance something, some idea, some area that I think could use a little bit more at this very early stage of the painting. So, can you use watercolors in the same way that you use oils? I've found yes, you can. If you prepare the panel or the paper ahead of time with a non-porous gesso or gesso mix, and I'll show you how to do that at the very end, just as a bonus material. And that is so that you can wipe it out, so that you can create platforms for light. You can create textures. You can mark with any kind of material. You can collage. It is so incredibly versatile when you paint it this way. Now, I know that's not how traditional watercolorists paint, but I can't help it. I've never taken a traditional watercolor class. This is how I paint. And you'll notice that I'm putting just a little hint of color here and there. You'll notice that if I put it in one place, I have to put it in at least two others. And this is, again, just to create a journey for the eye for you. I will put the color down as a stain, and then I will put a more opaque, thicker paint. This is, again, from my oil painting days, because the thicker, cleaner, more vibrant paint moves forward, whereas, the translucent, transparent, thinner monochromatic paint moves backwards. So again, I'm subtly building to, giving you something to look at, and trying very, very hard not to, nail it down until I really begin to enjoy the painting process myself. Pretty soon you'll see me get a credit card out. I'm again working on those items that are closer, those platforms for light, those little shapes, those little ellipses of light that are closest to us, just because that gives some semblance of realism. But as the painting process moves forward, things will occur to me, and I will include designs and textures and shapes and marks that are more indicative of what I wanted to say initially, my personal intention. Keep coming back to that. Okay, so I hope that you will join me. I've done this myself, all by myself. So I thought, well, I can always, do this wherever I am in the world. I'm kind of busy these days, but at least I had some time to do this. And I'm planning on doing lots more, so leave your questions. And goodbye for now. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.